Alright, guys, so let's talk about the Renaissance. The Renaissance was a rebirth. What is being reborn? We are reborn. Is that a word? Who knows? What's being reborn is a focus on the classics. Okay, classics. Now, what am I talking about when I'm talking about classics? Right, we're talking about Greek and Roman classics. Right? So looking at ancient Greece, ancient Rome. So we're looking at their sculptures. We're looking at the literature, the plays they developed. We are looking at the way in which they made art, which was more realistic. If you look at the PowerPoint I showed you guys, I didn't get to say it. I have it in the notes of it. But when I show you a picture of like which one's Greece, which one is the Renaissance, the image on the left is from ancient Greece and the image on the right is from the Renaissance. But they look very similar. That's because the Renaissance was inspired by, right, ancient Greece and Rome. It occurred during the 15th and 17th centuries, so we're talking about the 1400s to the 1600s. Now, that's a long time period. So art that you saw maybe in the early part of the Renaissance is going to evolve, actually become more realistic looking once you get to like the later half of that time period. Now, it began in Italy. Well, why Italy? Well, for one, ancient Rome was located there, right? So people had access, right? They could go outside, they could see the statues, they could see the buildings that the ancient Romans had built, the ruins. So they were inspired by their environment. Also, another important thing too was the increase in trade. Okay, Italy being in the middle of the Mediterranean or in the middle of important trade routes. So cities like Venice were always essential cities, even during times when feudalism and, the rest of Europe had gone through the Middle Ages. Like, some of these cities still continued to thrive off trade. We also learned about the increase in the power of European nation states, right? So the more powerful they got, these kings often supported the arts or artists. So they had like court painters that would paint for them, because remember, they didn't have cameras back then or any way of taking pictures. So like you get your portrait painted. Okay. The plague also is a big reason why we got out of the Middle Ages into modern times. Right, it killed a bunch of people, meant that peasants, right, their work was more valued. They made more money off their work. They were able to buy land. They also came up with new inventions, right? These new innovations led to an increase in the population, and that increase in the population led to people migrating towards cities. And in these cities, they became networks of trade and commerce. And again, with the creation of nation states, travel also become safer again as a result of this. So there's a few reasons why the Renaissance occurred. So it'll first begin in Italy, and that'll spread to other places in Western Europe and Northern Europe. A lot of that has to do with an invention called the printing press. So when we're looking at the Renaissance, biggest characteristic there is the focus on questioning, or having a questioning spirit, questioning especially tradition. Although the Catholic Church will fund many Renaissance artists, what we do see is a questioning of taking whatever the church says as truth, and we'll talk about that later, especially when it comes to the effects. Emphasis on the classics like Greece and Rome, right? So if you see this word humanism there, right? Humanism, we think of even the study of humanities, right? Humanities, study of philosophy, right? The social sciences, poetry, literature. Okay, this is humanities, right? So this idea that we're focusing on the individual, right? Focus on the individual's potential. Okay, so individualism and humanism kind of go hand in hand, right? It's a focus on the human, right? What can I create? So that's why you see just so many artists and writers, people like, if you know the Ninja Turtles, Michelangelo, Leonardo, Donatello, Raphael, Shakespeare, even in the later part of the Renaissance. These are all people who were supported or patronized, right? They were given financial support to do their work. Big emphasis also on realism, which again, inspired by Greek and Roman times, focus on the ideal human form, and a lot of that was also helped with a new technique called perspective. Now, what impacts did the Renaissance have? Okay, we had a more literate society with the invention of the printing press. Okay, that is a revolutionary invention. Just as important as the computer and the internet and smartphones. It was that revolutionary for back then. Very important too is not only were things printed, meaning they could be mass produced, they were cheaper to produce, right? We know the Europeans had worked very behind on their publication of books, right? If you were to compare it with the Middle East at the time. But also they wrote in the vernacular, and the vernacular means writing in everyday language. So like how we speak, as opposed to having to read things in Latin, which most people really didn't know how to do. Also, we see the creation of a lot of new buildings, new churches. St. Peter's Basilica, that's where the Pope, right, he goes and he gives all his addresses, right, his masses to the people. That was created during the Renaissance. It was funded during the Renaissance. A lot of new artwork, right? So you think of the Sistine Chapel, Michelangelo's David. A lot of artwork came out during this time that still stands to this day. The Mona Lisa, right? Famous paintings. Now, the long-term effects of the Renaissance are so significant. We wouldn't be where we are today if it weren't for sorry, I was checking something. If it weren't for the Renaissance. So basically, because of that questioning spirit and the emphasis on humanism, it's going to inspire things like the Protestant Reformation, which is going to be people challenging the Catholic Church, and then we have like this new faith of Protestantism coming about. It's also going to lead to the scientific revolution, right? So people were observing their world, trying to do things more realistically, they were saying, well, wait a second, why are we listening to just the church and their ideas? Let's test, let's observe, right? How can we know what we really know? So that scientific revolution inspires a later movement, which you guys will learn about next year, called the Enlightenment. Now, the Enlightenment questioned as well, but it wasn't focused on science. It questioned ideas on government, right? What's the best form of government? What are the rights we are entitled to? What's the role of people with their government? So because of the Renaissance, we have this questioning spirit. People want to understand universal laws of nature, which inspires people to understand universal laws when it comes to humans and the ways in which we create order and stability, which leads to a whole lot of revolutions, right? So the American Revolution, the French Revolution were inspired by the Enlightenment, which was inspired by all these other things. And if we look at nowadays, right, most societies are democratic, or we see democracy as the ideal form of government in many ways, or the idea at least of trying to protect our freedoms and rights that we feel like we're entitled to. So really without the Renaissance, none of these things would have happened, and that's why it's kind of a big deal. So I hope you enjoyed this little video. Again, here's some of that park action for you. Look at that. It's a beautiful day. Well, kind of, sort of. It could be nicer out, let's be honest. All right, a little gloomy out. Just take it in. Take in that beautiful sound of someone's car alarm going off. Look at that courthouse. Beautiful Art Deco courthouse. Yeah, it's been my life for the past couple of weeks. And for the next few weeks. So, hope you enjoyed this walk in the park with me. Keep safe. Be well. And thank you, bye, you guys. Miss you guys.